So, Jackass Forever is the first time the Jackass crew is reunited on screen in 11 years. Last time we saw them was Jackass 3D, a movie full of pranks and gore and guts and grime and all kinds of goofy things that your stupid little friends from MTV would still be doing on screen to make each other laugh. And Jackass Forever is no different, except for the fact that there's some new characters in town. The Jackass crew has returned, and they are older and grayer, but still somehow are managed to bring the laughs in a way that I think a lot of people didn't expect. They bring some new friends in, a lot of new pranks and gags, and ultimately are just trying to get a rise out of each other in the funniest way possible. If you've never seen one, a Jackass movie is fundamentally almost a documentary. It's a group of friends that basically follow. I mean, it really is like they follow each other around and they mess with each other and poke fun at each other and hit each other with tasers and shoot each other with beanbag guns and kick each other in the nuts. And one of their friends, director Jeff Tremaine, films it all and cuts it together, and that's basically your movie. It's more complicated than that by now, of course. There's a few scenes that are almost cinematic, as helped with friend of Jackass Spike Jonze, director of Her and a few other wonderful features. So there's some cinema to it for what it is, but really, I mean, it's like watching the MTV show Jackass, except blown up on your screen for 2 hours in a theater. I have seen things on a screen in a theater that I thought I would never see in my whole life. There are moments in this movie where I couldn't look away from what was happening, and there are moments where I couldn't look at the screen because it was so awful. Jackass Forever is probably the hardest I've laughed in a movie in 5 years. I mean, it might be the hardest I continue to laugh at films in a long time. I had so much fun watching this movie. It's so childish, and I love it. Andy, what'd you think of Jackass Forever?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I saw the first two in theaters, and I remember in the original one, just laughing my head off, just uncontrollable laughter at the stunts, at the craziness, at the pain, the everything about it's just super wild. And I didn't know if that formula would still hang up. I would thought, have I matured? Have they matured?
Am I out of touch? Right.
Yeah. Are these are these guys going to really work this time around? And they overwhelmingly did. Like I laughed more in just the opening 10-minute sequence than I have in most comedies.
It's so disarming, dude. Oh God, I know we can't talk about it, but
yeah, but in just that, and the fact is, it still works, and it works because you got these friends, that they're real life friends, and they're close people, and they're just doing these outrageous, dangerous, painful, absurd stunts, and they think about ways to make them funny, ways to make them hurt, and it's hilarious to watch. It's painful to watch. It's a lot of gross out humor, but that also, I mean, it's the magic of cinema, of transferring the feeling that's happened on screen into into the viewer. And yeah, it was hilarious, and it still got it. It still works. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, Jackass is obviously a very simple formula, right? You get 5 or 6 people who are technically stuntmen, even though they're in no way qualified to be stuntmen. I don't think they didn't go to any kind of school. They're just goofy skaters and former drug addicts who have made a living filming them, hitting each other and smacking each other and pulling pranks on each other and doing awful things to one another, but all in the spirit of having fun and laughing and enjoying each other's company. And that's often painful and can sometimes be even really hard to watch, grimacing even, right? Wincing at the screen. But you find they're having so much fun making themselves the butt of the joke. That's an important part of the Jackass formula. You're not pranking strangers on the street. You are the gag. If you're in Jackass, you are the thing people are laughing at. They have so much fun making each other the butt of the joke and inviting us in the audience along for the ride through Jeff Tremaine's camera, through the direction, and through the editing room, that we get to safely enjoy all of the laughs and all the thrills and chills of Jackass from the comfort of our theater with a bucket of popcorn and a couple of friends. It is a delightful amount of fun, even if oftentimes it's incredibly sophomoric and often difficult to watch. But that's part of what makes it fun, right? It's like a roller coaster. You never really know where Jackass is headed, but you're going to have a fun time getting there.
And
So I want to talk about. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, well, and I think part of what they've done is through the show, the Jackass show that was on MTV 20 years ago, and the films, they've created several formulas or several things that are iconic to Jackass films and series. And it's things like, they have creative names for all the stunts. Scorpion Botox comes to mind.
Yeah,
They
right.
have several stunts that they have done throughout the course of the series, and that make an appearance here as well. There's the people play different roles. Johnny Knoxville's the ringleader. There's several people that are kind of the group punching bags, and
Right.
Steve-O's like he's the wild card, wild man out. And the gross out humor as well. And that's part of so they've created trends within their own thing that they do, and they that also kind of gives it a sense of consistency.
Yeah, the way the cast kind of carves themselves out in the show is a big part of what makes it work, because Jackass truly is built on authenticity. Like, not only in friends being authentic with one another and being honest and being able to laugh and give each other a hard time, but also in like their expressions of joy and subsequent pain and anguish when they're in these gags. When Steve-O is like screaming because something awful has happened to him, it's so real. And like, that's part of what makes it funny. Like, it's just you're watching absurdist situations on screen and like a group of idiots laughing at them. And like, it's just so goofy to see this in reality. You feel like you're in on the gag, like you're part of the gang. Some of and the cast does a great job keeping this all together. Like you said, Knoxville's our ringleader. Long live Johnny Knoxville. And we got a bunch of the old crew returning. If you're watching on Facebook Live with us, you can see some of them on screen right now. We've got Steve-O, Chris Pontius is back, Danger Aaron, Preston Lacey, Jason Acuna, and what's the other one? Dave England is back. We are suspiciously missing Bam Margera. He's kind of got his own problems. And Ryan Dunn is missing since he passed away in 2005, I want to say. I could be wrong. He has a wonderful little bit at the end, a tribute. But we also get some new characters in, which is a lot of fun. Zach Hollis, another Preston Lacey kind of big guy. A man named Poopies who comes in. A guy named... Jasper and his father Dark Shark come in, and a female comedian named Rachel Hollis. And these young kids are so hardcore, dude. I feel like they make the older guys look tame, because the older guys got to take it easy, right? They get concussed and stuff. They do a lot of gnarly stuff in this movie, but good God, like these kids who grew up watching Jackass and have been invited to watch to be in the film, they're so hardcore, dude. Like, good Lord.
Yeah, Rachel Wolfson is the
the
woman, Ellis something.
Was it Rachel?
But
I don't know.
But that's part of what I think where Jackass has kind of updated itself is it's introduced a young and more diverse cast. It's been just primarily a show of white guys, and they've introduced diversity. There's a woman on the squad now. The only downside, or not downside, but these new people don't really have the camaraderie, and they're not really given the chance to really develop themselves in the same way, because that's part of, like I said, so much of why this works is just like the relationships between these guys that have been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah, a Jackass movie is a bit like a road movie, because our characters are traveling throughout the country, going to different places, or really the world, going to different places and performing different stunts or pranks or gags. Sometimes they'll be at an alligator pit in Australia, and in the next scene the camera will fade to black and fade back up, and they'll be at like some kind of makeshift redneck water park in Florida. Like, they will just jump around randomly. So you do have a feeling that you're on a bit of a journey with these guys to make this movie. And that's the bit of it that feels documentary. Often you can see characters standing just off screen, laughing at things. They'll be sitting between takes when a prank is pulled on them, outside. They'll be following COVID restrictions. People with face masks will be walking around. Like, you do have it's a bit of an adventure. It's a bit of a journey, like to jump into a Jackass movie and follow these guys along as they travel the world and make this movie and rib on one another. But it's an incredibly rewarding one. And often you feel as if you are invited in on this kind of fun having, and it's, to me, it like spreads a lot of positivity. Even if some of the pranks are really hardcore, and we should probably talk about them. Um,
Yeah. Good Lord.
good God.
So the pranks that they do in these shows are meant to be dangerous, are meant to be painful, and also hilarious. Uh, the thing is, they're always trying to prank each other. Like they do the official things that they've set up and require, like the camera crew, coordination, whatever. But then they're always trying to get each other. Like they're always trying to secretly tase each other, or like only tell them about half the prank that's happening. There's a great one called Silence of the Lambs, which they introduce as one joke, and then halfway through, it's actually something else, and the participants don't know what's happening. And that's how because part of what they do is get these really raw reactions of like, oh no, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And that's part of what they do, but like they're painful, they're really gross, which is something else we can get into. What are your thoughts on these pranks?
No, I feel the same way. Jackass movies are traditionally pretty gnarly to watch, but this one is really rough. Mostly because of the like looking back on the Jackass movies, I've watched them a few times. I feel like I could say handily this one has the most male nudity. Handily. I can't believe this didn't get an NC-17 rating. And I know you said when I mentioned at the time, well, none of it's sexual. I'm like, I know, but dude, I've never seen this much like male nudity in a cinema ever. And in a way, that's progressive. It actually in a really important way. And that's part of what makes this movie certified gold cinema. But regardless, there's also a lot of like really torturous, painful stuff. Because that's a part of Jackass, right? Like not only are you getting a laugh out of Johnny Knoxville tasing Steve-O's getting tased, and there's going to be pain involved in that. So part of the gag is stuff that's going to make you wince. And there's like insects in here, there's spider bites, there's like electric shocks.
Oh man,
there's all kinds of stuff, dude. And like on the one hand, it's funny, but on the other hand, like I was literally wincing in my seat. Like it's hard to keep that stuff down. And in being able to watch that with your friends in a theater, especially a theater with a bunch of people in it, is likely the best way you can possibly experience those feelings.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts where the camera crew is starting to lose it. Like they're heaving and gagging, and like they're barely keeping it together because of what's happening. And yeah, I wanted to comment on the male nudity as well. So much of Hollywood is about leering at the female body primarily, and sometimes the male body. And this is the antithesis of that, where there is so much full frontal male nudity. God. And it's completely unflattering. It's not any kind of sexual or exploitative. It is because a lot of the gags involve that part of the body, and you see a whole lot of it, and it's so painful, and that's part of the gag, and it's like we're going to make you look so uncomfortable simply by how much male nudity you have to watch, and then to see it like have pain.
Yeah, it's really something else, and like that makes Jackass a tough thing to recommend to people who maybe have never seen it, especially this one. My God, if you've never seen anything from Jackass and you're like, where do I start? You don't.
No, see, I disagree. It's even better.
Really? Oh God, no. I'd start him at 1 and walk him through. I think part of it's that legacy, right? Like, because nostalgia is a big part of this one. Like coming back after this much time, Johnny Knoxville has this striking gray hair. The guys look visibly older, and many of the older guys don't do a lot of the stunts anymore. They take it easy. Knoxville has said this time he gets hit by a bull in this movie. The last time he's had 16 concussions in his life, and he's like, I can't anymore. I mean, all of these guys report waking up every day with joint pain, back pain, knee pain. These guys have beat the hell out of themselves for 30 years for everybody's entertainment, which obviously I appreciate. But it makes it, sometimes it can make it tough to watch. So I think the introduction of the new cast stepping in and doing a lot of those gags really does work. Like it doesn't take anything away from it. I'm not frustrated that, oh, well, why isn't Steve-O doing that? No, dude, all the old guys get up to some pretty gnarly stuff. The young guys do too. But for what it's worth, like, I think it comes together into this really full picture that doesn't feel like it takes anything away from what Jackass is. It feels like it adds to what Jackass is.
Right.
That makes any sense. Yeah.
I think one thing that I really appreciate in that we were kind of talking afterwards is that there is no like drug or alcohol related stunts or pranks or that kind of humor in this. And part of that has to do with a lot of the guys struggling with substance abuse problems throughout their careers, but also this was on, I think maybe because it started on TV and you couldn't have had those kinds of pranks on TV, but it would be easy to do that. It would be easy to say, okay, everyone's going to get really drunk and then try to do XYZ, and they don't do that. They are purposely avoiding that kind of low hanging fruit, for a number of reasons, but it's good that it's, in a way, it's not clean humor, but in a way it is, because it's not like this substance dependent.
Yeah, and that's worth mentioning. Like old Jackass, those guys were definitely hopped up when they were making those movies, for sure. Like many of them were usually and actively using drugs and alcohol when they were making them. Maybe not necessarily on set, but like I mean, these guys were like punk skaters. They were probably doing that on set behind the scenes. And it's funny watching reviews or watching kind of like interviews with people who have been part of the film, Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine mostly. Because they're kind of the ringleaders. Jeff Tremaine behind the camera as the director, and Knoxville as kind of the actual de facto ringleader on screen. They said Jackass 2 was probably the most tonally gnarly of the pranks and the stunts, because as Jeff Tremaine said, everybody was ready to die in Jackass 2. Literally the term used. Everybody was ready to die. He's like, those guys would literally die on camera if they thought it would make the other guys laugh. Like, they didn't even care. He's like, now, obviously not that way. Very much so not that way. Like, we want everybody to be safe. Obviously, we want to be able to get good footage and, like, get a good stunt out. But, like, nobody ever wants to see somebody laying still at the end of a stunt. And you still don't in this movie. And there's a couple times it happens. And it's a bit harrowing, because suddenly this kind of engaging form of entertainment, even watching it, comes to a screeching halt. And it's like, oh, no, is that person okay? Are they all right? You always want to see your favorite cast members get up and dust themselves off. And Jackass Forever gives you the pleasure of seeing that most of the time, like in the best way. And I think ultimately that's what makes it work. Yes, these guys are not ready to die like they were in Jackass 2. But that really wasn't okay then. And it feels really good now that they're so far on the other side of it. You can see guys like Steve-O doing incredibly well after being really embroiled in addiction, in scandal. Like, you can see these guys doing much better. It's a shame not everybody could join them from the original cast, but they got stuff to work through. And yeah, I'd like somehow Jackass Forever comes out on the other side of 11 years and a pandemic better for it. And you wouldn't think it, but somehow this stuff is still funny. It still works.
Yeah, it's still hilarious. And I haven't seen one since the second one, so that's maybe 15 years. And yeah, it's still unbelievably funny.
Have you not seen Jackass 3D?
I did not see the third one.
Oh, dude, we should get together on Jackass. Watch Jackass 3 at your place. Jackass 3 has some good stuff, like, for what it's worth. I think the formal title is Jackass 3D, but you don't actually need a 3D for it. Anyway, I think that about wraps the Jackass Forever review. Any other thoughts or recommendations?
I'm ready.
I'm so glad we got to watch this one. I really am. I'm glad we got to talk about this on the show. Andy, would you recommend Jackass Forever?
Absolutely, with a lot of caveats.
Yeah, lots of caveats.
Yeah, I mean, it is hilarious. It is funny. It is, it's for everyone. It's introducing this young, diverse cast. It is really gross. Some of it, like I said, there's a ton of male nudity. It's not flattering. There's a lot of gross out stunts. People get hurt. They get hospitalized a couple times. So that's kind of what you're in for. But it is just unbelievably funny. I was laughing, gagging along the way with them. And if you're a fan of the series or you watched the show growing up, it's definitely for you.
I'm in the same boat. This movie is a ton of fun. If you're a Jackass fan, you will not be disappointed. Go see Jackass Forever. See it with as many people as you can who are also like-minded and know Jackass and will enjoy watching Jackass Forever. Or maybe somebody who's open-minded and really wants to get into it. And you might be right. It might be a good first feature. But you're not going to want to watch this with your parents. You're not going to want to watch this with really anybody who would think this kind of brand of crude humor wouldn't work, because Jackass Forever, my God, do they push it to 11. Like, it is so crass. Good luck keeping your eyes on screen the whole movie. I couldn't. I would be very impressed to meet the person who could. Jackass Forever.
I think I was the same way. There was times I had to look away.
Yeah, I couldn't. But at the same time, like, I cannot think of a single film I've seen honestly, in probably a decade that made me laugh as hard or as long or as many times as this movie did in theaters. It's baffling how well it works for me. Like it's like it taps into like the lizard brain, like in the back of my head, like a caveman, right? I'm just like, I can't help but laugh at this goofy sophomore stuff. It's so physical, it's tangible, it's kinetic. I like Jackass Forever. I think you'll like it too.